morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning, and welcome to another installment of Accidental Christ, the story of Jesus as told by his uncle. I posted something on my page here yesterday, and I mentioned that many years ago I was in the shower, and that's where I call it my phone booth to God. And I don't know why my mind was wandering in these directions, but it did. I was taking a shower and I was thinking about the fact, or the literary fact anyway, uh, that nobody actually believed that Jesus was a big holy man or a celebrity of any kind, really, until the day after he performed this miracle, his first miracle of turning water into wine uh, at the marriage feast in Cana. And there's all sorts of ways, and my friend Tony pointed out one very beautiful sort of tantric, esoteric interpretation of that, and I'm sure there's lots of them. But I was thinking just in terms of real life objective reality and the geopolitical realities of the day there in first century Palestine. And looking at it from the point of view of they were trying to set Jesus up as an actual king, just like King Charles will be the next king of England after Elizabeth dies. Well, there was a similar thing going on. But anyway, I figured, well, nobody started to think of him as a magician or a wonder worker or a wizard. They didn't start to think of him in a magical, spiritual way until after this miracle. And then it occurred to me how he turned the water into wine at that wedding ceremony. And I was so excited. I knew, yes, that's exactly what happened. And I got out of the shower and I told Constance, and we went on a big long walk. And I explained the whole thing to her. And she said, yes, that's how it happened. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to write that down like a little short story. And of course, I could write it down as a short story, and I started to. But in order to set up the reality of that scenario, I had to write a whole bunch of other stuff to explain why such things as Jesus's family was a noble family, and they were very wealthy, and all of that, which is turning out to be true. But anyway, so the story kept getting longer and longer and longer and longer, and so I guess that's my way of explaining why I even started to write this novel. But anyway, we're starting on book 2. There's 2 chapters in the first of book 2 that concerns this wedding ceremony in Cana, and this is the first of them. And I hope you'll sit tight for both of these and enjoy them. The epigram, well, anyway, book 2, the marriage at Cana. The little epigram was from St. Matthew 27:44. And remember, I'm, as much as possible, basing the entire book just on the white bread gospel narrative and describing how it could have actually happened in objective reality without having to oblige you to believe in anything too supernatural. The bandits who were crucified with him were also reproaching him. That's the epigram. Chapter 1 starts off with another one of the flashbacks to the scene of the crucifixion. Jesus shook the cross with a powerful body spasm and pulled at the ropes until the flesh of his wrists tore. He was breathing again, but now in large, tortured gasps that made his torso a billow of skin and ribs. He rolled his head violently right and left. Suddenly, his abdomen contracted so deeply into the cavity of his frail body that Lazar thought for a moment he could see his spine. Then, while his head was turned, an amber vomit of vinegar and gall shot from his mouth with such force that it splattered the nail-pierced feet of the man crucified to his right. "Messiah, why don't you jump down and get me a napkin?" he croaked at Jesus. "Shut your mouth. This is the man who would deliver us all," shouted the other. He twisted his head to look upon Jesus, but he could not. Neither of the condemned could see the center cross. "Master, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Through thick clouds of pain that shrouded his every thought, Jesus heard a weakened hoarse voice echo of his own voice, or an echo of his own voice. I'll say that again. Through the thick clouds of pain that shrouded his every thought, Jesus heard a weakened hoarse echo of his own voice, once again mustering his old Essene bedside manner to comfort the poor fellow. "Today you will be with me in paradise." And that's the end of that little flashback section. In the days that followed the meeting with the angel from Sepphoris, Jesus fell into a dark mood. He stopped taking his meals and barred his chamber door against all visitors. His quarters on the second floor of the villa overlooked the courtyard and well. Steps led from his bedchamber to the roof, where he brooded in the cool of the evening. It was here that he chose to spend the cool nights of late spring in solitude. The beloved disciples continued to baptize and teach, all the while assuring the growing body of pupils that their Lord was in deep prayer. Besides the 12 Carmelites, there were now 72 full-time resident pupils. Mary was deeply concerned that without the presence of the Master, the neophytes would soon become discouraged or worse. The Council of Seven was becoming impatient for him to begin the new phase of the plan. Ephron of Arbela grumbled that Jesus' first miracle would need to be his own exorcism. On the 12th day of his fast, Jesus, bored with his own melancholy, roused himself before dawn. He washed his face and hands and knelt near the eastern wall of his rooftop hermitage. Vowing silently not to rise until the spirit of his inmost will revealed a plan of action, he closed his eyes and prepared to battle the demons that torment all who would attain perfect stillness. External sounds, bodily aches, and the most formidable devil of all, the wandering mind. At the monastery, Jesus had delighted in meditation. "How can you hope to touch the heart of God if your own heart remains undiscovered?" was the favorite adage of his meditation master. Now he found attaining that same state of quietude a challenge he had long ago forgotten. As the sun rose, Jesus was assailed with the chaotic noises of awakening village life. first from his own home, then from throughout the compound. Finally, it seemed there was no sound in all of Cana that did not intrude upon his stillness. Good day, m'lady. Good day, Nathaniel. Won't you come in and breakfast with us? Thank you, m'lady, but I cannot. I come as an angel of my master Aaron ben Yehuda, who has sent me to deliver good tidings of great joy to extend to you, your family, and your household a joyous invitation. Indeed, Mary pretended not to notice the poor boy's stuttering. His message is this: to Mary, the esteemed widow of Joseph the great carpenter, blessings and peace. I, Aaron ben Yehuda, give thanks to God that he has allowed me to live long and blessed my eyes so that they might see the day of the marriage of my youngest daughter, Dinah, to the noble widower Isaac ben Simon. Isaac ben Samuel. I humbly beseech you, your children and your grandchildren, and all who dwell within your gates, to honor my house with your presence at the feast that will follow in the nuptial solemnities, in the cooling shade of my fruit orchard hard by my home 9 days hence, on the 27th of Sivan at the 6th hour. Slow down, dear boy. Does your master know that my son Jesus, the holy man and teacher, and 80 of his disciples currently reside in our house? I'm sure he does, my lady. Are you quite sure your master's invitation extends to so great a number? His message says, all who dwell within your gates, my lady. Please, my lady. My master is a proud man and will punish me if he believes my awkward delivery of this message offends you and gives you cause to refuse his invitation. If I may be frank, my lady, you are the noblest of the aristocrats of our province. Your presence will bring great honor to his house. Go back to your master and tell him that Mary, the widow of Joseph ben Heli, rejoices in his happiness and will be honored to attend the wedding feast of his daughter Dinah and Isaac ben Samuel. Also tell your master she will relay this glad word to her sons Simon, Joseph, Judas, and James, and their families who reside in Sidon and Bethlehem, and to her daughter Leah and her husband in Nazareth. But before she further extends the invitation to her son Jesus the teacher and the 80 disciples under his spiritual tutelage, she asks for confirmation that his goodwill will not be strained by the addition of so great a multitude. Thank you, my lady. I will return with my master's reply. Jesus was overhearing all of that in his meditation. Jesus abandoned all pretense of meditation and drifted into the musings of a common eavesdropper. Aaron ben Yehuda, he thought, the biggest hypocrite in Galilee. After the death of Joseph, it was Aaron ben Yehuda who produced fraudulent documents that allegedly proved that Joseph had deeded over certain land holdings, including the Cana estate. The old fool grossly misunderestimated the family's influence and Mary's business acumen. Eventually, he was nearly prosecuted himself for forgery over the incident. Jesus knew the old miser would renege on the wedding invitation after he discovered how many more mouths he would have to feed. 80 more would more than double the guest list. The extra wine alone would cost a fortune. Not that the old thief couldn't afford it. Jesus loitered in his ill temper. Oh, to see his face when 80 more dinner guests arrive, that would delight all of Cana. Jesus laughed out loud. Suddenly the thought of food and wine pierced his bowels. They growled like fighting dogs. He had not eaten in 12 days. The hunger made him feel human again. Forget the meditation. He must eat. He slowly got up and carefully descended the steps to his room and dressed for breakfast. The dark night of the soul had passed. He broke his fast with grapes, figs, and water, but was full after only a few bites. Mary was overjoyed at her son's resurrection and strangled him with hugs as she chattered of her 12 weeks of worry. Weak as he was, he instructed that word be passed to the disciples that the Master would teach this afternoon, and asked that appointments with the council members be prioritized and scheduled. After his breakfast, he retired to the baths to steam away the poisons that 12 days of fasting had leached to the surface of his skin. As a special treat, his mother sent 2 of her own servants to oil his body and scrape his skin. He hadn't been oiled and scraped in years. For a moment, Jesus really did feel like a king. Now we return to the narrative. Nathanael, dear child, what happened to your face? I fell upon the steps of my master's porch, my lady. It is nothing. I bring a written message of reply from my master. Mary did not believe the poor lad. He had been beaten. She took the delicately written scroll from Nathanael's quivering hand and unrolled it. Here's what it said. To Mary, the esteemed widow of Joseph ben Heli, blessings and peace. I rejoice that you and the members of your noble family will celebrate with me at my daughter's wedding. Please know that I would grieve deeply if your son Jesus and the entire community of his disciples and students did not also attend. It was always my intention that it be so, and I apologize that my servant's ineptitude has caused you confusion. Mary gently touched the boy's battered face. Thank your master and tell him I will extend the invitation to all within our gates. Thank you, my lady. For a few days, Jesus was happy to put aside the anxiety of the plot and simply play the part of a teacher. It was a role he often fantasized playing at the monastery. He was good at it. He gave silent thanks to his Carmelite masters, who for 18 years were so insistent that he memorized the Torah and the works of the prophets. Every word from his mouth was weighed against Scripture, even by the humblest seeker. He knew the Sadducees and Pharisees would present a much more difficult challenge. In the evenings, he chatted on the roof with Brother Apollonius, or joined in with the members of his family, who had begun arriving from afar to attend the wedding feast. Everyone thought it was uproariously funny that Aaron ben Yehuda would be forced to pay for the food and drink for over 80 extra guests. Jesus' half-brother Simon, who was now a successful wine broker in Sidon, had a particularly delicious piece of gossip. My associate in Tyre tells me that Aaron ben Yehuda sent word that he desperately needed 18 firkins of the finest Calaban and would pay whatever premium necessary to have them delivered in time for the wedding feast. Simon was almost in tears from laughing. The request was on such short notice that my friend did not have sufficient amphorae to transport such a quantity and was forced to ship the nectar in bulk in 6 huge stone pots. It is costing him a fortune. The deposit on the pots cost nearly as much as the wine. At least at the feast we will get the Calaban, James injected. I know for a fact that he plans to serve the other guests that Sorrentine swill that was rejected last winter by Herod's winemaster. Before he sent it back, I heard that he had the father of Herodias pickled alive in it. Judas always had a mind for the macabre. Joseph added with an air of mock erudition, "At least the old forger will probably add so much water that it will not poison anyone." "You can be sure that Isaac ben Samuel will be served the good stuff," Mary contributed with uncharacteristic mirth. "Even though old Ben Yehuda pays the bill, it is still the bridegroom's party." Jesus had never seen his family in such a light-hearted mood. During his 18 years at the monastery, he had visited their various homes only a handful of times, and not since he was 11 had he seen them all together. On the eve of the great wedding feast, he managed to break away and take a peaceful stroll with his sister Leah, now 26, and her 8-year-old daughter Sarah. When the child was out of earshot, she seized Jesus' hand and stopped him. "You lied to me when we were children," she chided him. "You told me you were not a king." "But Simon told you the truth," Jesus said seriously. "Soldiers can kill us." "It's not too late. I believe you don't want this. You are a healer, not a king. James is stronger. None of the sects calls him a bastard. He told me he feels called." Their conversation was interrupted by an unexpected appearance of Uncle Clopas, who, after nearly smothering Leah with kisses and hugs, rambled on embarrassingly about what a beautiful young woman she had become. Reluctantly releasing his niece, he apologized for interrupting and begged her for a few minutes of her brother's time. She gently touched Clopas upon the cheek. "Of course, Uncle." She called little Sarah, who tugged her hand and pulled her down the path toward the main house. "Think about what I said. It's not too late." "Not too late for what?" Clopas asked. "Family intrigue, nothing important. So, you've come for the wedding?" Clopas rubbed his hands in anticipation. Would not miss it for the world. So Aaron the forger will at last be rid of his youngest daughter. Yes, and our miniature monastery will swell the guest list of the wedding feast by over 80. They both shared a moment of shameless laughter. My half-brother Simon tells us the old goat was forced to purchase an additional 18 firkins of fine Caliban wine just for the extra guests. Clopas stopped smiling for a moment and then broke into such a fit of laughter that he began coughing uncontrollably and had to be helped to a nearby bench. Catching his breath, he managed to spit out a few words before the laughing, coughing cycle resumed. All that wine, and you and your 80 Nazarites won't touch a drop. Jesus had completely forgotten himself. Since his appearance before John for baptism, he presented himself to the world as a Nazarite holy man. He could no more drink wine in public than touch a menstruating woman or eat the flesh of a swine. Jesus now joined his uncle in a crippling laugh as he speculated about how best to spring the expensive news on Aaron ben Yehuda. Come, uncle, if I cannot drink to the bride tomorrow, we must toast her happiness tonight. Verily, my lord, not since Solomon has such wisdom prevailed. As the two kinsmen walked back toward the house, they paused for a moment on high ground to enjoy the cool air. From the west, the direction of Aaron ben Yehuda's land, the breeze carried the frightened cry of a lamb as its throat was cut. Sounds like the guests will have plenty to eat as well, giggled Clopas. Yes, my royal nephew, tomorrow will be a memorable day. And that's the end of today's installment. Tomorrow, we'll all go to the wedding feast. Until then, continue to be good to yourself. Have a great week, everyone. Be good to yourself and to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.